So today I'm gonna talk about what is FHIR and how it is helping us in improving the patient engagement. So as you are all aware that India is rapidly growing in the healthcare industry. Like there have a lot of government initiatives been taken care by government to collaborate the data which is being captured for on the behalf of the users or the patients. Right now, the main challenge is that how do we uh, share this data which is being captured by every hospital across the organizations or across the healthcare industry. uh, so what typically used to happen is that we used to take physical prescriptions, like when let's say we visited a hospital A and we take the medications, and if we switch our hospital to hospital B, then again we need to carry our physical prescriptions to to the doctor of the hospital B, right? So that's a lot of tedious tasks and the friction, right? So what government is trying to do is like trying to formalize and standardize the uh, data syncing among the organizations which are participating into the healthcare industry. So in that respect, we have a standardization which is like FHIR, and that is being globally adopted. And today I'm gonna talk about a bit on it and how it is useful in improving the patient engagements. So, a quick introduction again of myself. Like, I'm Gaurav, Associate Director of Engineering at GeekyAnts. I have been part of building a lot of products like Geek Care, or you can say telemedicine applications, building the mobile application using React Native, Flutter. So, I've been tech consultant and software engineer at core. Okay, let's talk about what is FHIR. So, FHIR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. That's the basic definition. You guys will be thinking, could you please elaborate? Yeah, sure. Let me talk about the FHIR. FHIR is basically an open source standard which is developed by healthcare industry to facilitate the exchange of healthcare information between different healthcare institutions. It was originally created by HL7, and it is a global organization which is looking after the healthcare standardization across the globe. This is the fourth version in the series. Previously, there are three more adoption which has happened, but due to the rapid change in the web technologies, so HL7 has implemented a new standard for the healthcare industry. FHIR is basically, you can say that the data, a single source of data for anything related to your healthcare domain. I'll just give an analogy in that. So right now in India, we have been using the Aadhaar card, which is a unique identifier for the individual person, which the government is maintaining as a single repository. Similarly, we can have a single data source for our healthcare data, which can be used by multiple organization, government offices, or your private clinics. So if we have a single source, so we can easily share our information, our medical records, our medical history, what prescription or what medications we've been taking in the previously, so the doctor can provide us better treatment by seeing our history. So basically, what it is helping is to improve the efficiency in healthcare delivery by standardizing the electronic data interchange. Uh, also it implies the protects the confidentiality and security of the healthcare data by enforcing standards, because each data which is being captured by the organization, those has to be in a standard format, because if those are not there, then it's very difficult to share and sync and communicate between other organizations. So FHI is basically helping us standardize the data. Let's just look at what are the main core pillars of FHIR. First is the resource oriented architecture for organizing the health data. ROA is a architecture design which emphasizes on data, and it called as resources. Any small data like your name, patient information, date of gender, prescription, lab test, those all are categorized into data. ROI help us to structure the data in different categories and make it in a standard format, so that the sharing and the data standard across the organizations is similar. Secondly is the interoperability concept, where in order to sync the data, right, there has to be a standardization, right. That's where the interoperability concepts comes into picture, and this is being used, and this interoperability concepts are based on RESTful API, which is easy to integrate. You can think of this as a server to server communication between two parties, but with a standard format. Any organization cannot have their own format of capturing the health data. Thirdly, it also has a modularity, meaning that if you are dealing with just patient and medications, right, so you can implement just subset standardization of the FHIR. You don't have to implement all the protocols, all the standardization which FHIR is providing. Third is extensibility. Once every organization or every product vendor has their own business logic, right, and business needs, so you might have to capture additional information of the patient, right, when you are building a product or a service which you are providing. So FHIR does have some mechanism to extend the standard data set, and you can add your own attributes to it. For example, we are capturing the patient information like name, gender, but you also need to have the language preference of the user, so that this language property can be extended to the standard format. Lastly, like FHIR is mostly patient centric and human readable data formats it is providing. So data formats like JSON, XML are all supported in FHIR. And lastly, FHIR is a open source, so anybody can see the standardization and implement in their own way. It does not restrict you to implement on the tech stack or the languages or the architecture. It is just a protocol which it is recommending that you should follow in order to have a better way of syncing the data among the organizations. So if I put in a simple terms, like all the patients and the organizations are kind of collaborating together in syncing the data, and there are concepts like resources, interoperabilities, which make it very efficient way of transferring the data from one organization to another organization, so that the patient does not have to take the physical copy and standardize the electronic data exchange. Moving on, let's just talk about the goals of FHIR. So first is to have the healthcare interoperability and data exchange. In here, all the resources, like they are like two main thing in FHIR is the data exchange, because we are kind of standardization the data exchange of one hospital to another hospital. So that is the main goal of the FHIR. Second is that there should be a seamless way of transmitting the data. For example, if the organization B has XML support and organization has a JSON support of the data, right? So there should be a way even to transform the JSON data to XML and then share it to the hospital B. So it has laid down a lot of rules and protocols how you can structure your data when you're capturing for the patient. Thirdly, is that all the patients, they should have instantly information should be available for them. They should not be waiting for the data to download, or they should not be taking any physical copy. So if I have a medical emergency and if I'm moving to a hospital like Manipal Hospital, and previously I was using Apollo, so Manipal Hospital should be able to quickly be able to access my medical history by calling some RESTful APIs to Apollo Hospital. So that's how it is simplifying the data exchange between the organizations. Also, it supports a lot of paradigms and architecture. It FHIR does not have strong say, but it does recommend a lot of architecture style which you can follow. But it does have lot of support of the paradigm, like JSON support is there, document support is there, services support is there, XML support is there. So it is not restricting to one particular format, but it has lot of paradigms which it is supporting internally. Last is leveraging the cross-industry web technology. As you all know that the IT and the technology moves very fastly, right? So FHIR does not restrict on what technology you are using. You can build your application in .NET and your other application in React.js or Next.js, but the underlying standardization, how you write, how you communicate, it does control on that. So it is controlling your communication level side, but not on the technology side. So if I need to put together what the whole FHIR is, so you can see in the diagram that they are providers, they are EHRs platform, there are lab test reports, there are claim insurance, there are patient application, web portals, physician. So in order to have a seamless communication among all the organization, all the entity, there should be a standard way of doing it, and FHIR is helping us in doing that. If you see, as I mentioned earlier, that HL7 has introduced the FHIR version 4, which is rapidly adopted by all the organization in the health industry, and even any product vendor who is developing new product, they are implementing FHIR in their products, because to have a seamless communication between the organization. With this, because of FHIR, there is a advantage of interoperability, enabling better patient care. They drive the innovation by collaborating the data between the organization and giving more efficient and performant services to the end users. And so now let's talk about the two main pillars of FHIR. One is resource and second is interoperability. Resource you can think of as a data unit, which is the smallest one and which can be grouped together into one category. For example, a person data can be a resource for you, or your X-rays which you are doing it can be another resource of the FHIR, or your lab test can be grouped into another clinical documents as a resource. So resources are nothing but the data set which we are capturing on the behalf of the patient, and these resources are categorized into standard way. You cannot have any data, for example, if you want to have a language along with the patient, you need to extend the data source, but you cannot embed it into the standard ones. So that's how the flexibility of the FHIR is. It is not restricting you to capture what data, but it is giving you different means of how you can organize your data in your database layer, and then help us in communication. Each resource can be identified using a unique URL. A typical structure of the URL will be like your base endpoint, then your resource type, and a last one is the identifier. This is a standard way of doing it, and resources will have a structure like metadata, your narratives, your extension. So this all will be part of the JSON schema which you are presenting, or XML format which you are presenting. Resources can be retrieved using RESTful APIs or your socket servers, anything, but it has to be laid down in a standard format which the FHIR has laid down. Now let's talk about interoperability. As I have already mentioned that we are capturing a lot of health data from various sources. For example, your fitness band, your Apple Watch, or your lab reports, or your healthcare applications, or hospitals, right? So there are a lot of data which is in different formats, in different structure, and for a single patient, right? And there are multiple source of data. Now, how do we make sure that all the data which we are capturing is in sync and is aligned with the standardization? That's where the interoperability concepts play into picture. Interoperability is nothing but different systems or devices work together and exchange the information seamlessly without any obstacles or error. In our case, the doctors, hospitals, or the healthcare provider can share information about patients to provide better care for them. If I need to give a realistic picture like how interoperability will look like, for example, let's say hospital A has their own data format. Let's say they support XML. Now hospital B supports JSON. So if the two has to communicate, then hospital A and hospital B has to have a data transformation layer, right, which transform the data from one format to another, which the other person understand. So you can see how many connections will be there when we look at the global level, because we need to have a data formation layer for your fitness band, for your lab records, for your healthcare providers, and so on and so forth. But if we apply the concept of interoperability, what it will happen is like you are standardizing the data structure for it. You know that if I'm referring to a patient information, you will always get the name, gender, date of birth. You will not get any other. If there's other properties, you will get in a field called extension. So that's where you can by default understand what data structure the other organization will have it, and you can directly call the RESTful APIs and integrate it. You don't have to every time rely on to the underlying RESTful endpoints of there or the data structure of them. So once the standardization, for example, the FHIR updates their standardization, then automatically all the organization will have to update the data format. So that's how the syncing will happen. Moving on, how this all data syncing or data management, which I've been talking about, are helping the patients, right? So right now, the method of interaction for any patient is via portal or mobile app or wearable devices, right? And any clinical document which you are generating at the clinics. So if patient one has a doctor A and they've been having some history, medical history, which the patient has to share with the doctor sitting at the, let's say, outside of the India or at some far place. So with just click of a button, right, they will be able to access, the doctor will be able to access the patient history. So that's where the performance come into picture. That's where the efficiency come into picture. Patients can easily connect with any doctor across the globe and get the treatment done. So that's how we are improving the healthcare services for the patients. Now let's just see, since there are different formats of the data, right? There can be clinical data or there can be billing related data, right? So how do we organize them? FHIR has a concept of composition framework. Composition framework is basically a way of structuring the data structure into different categories. If you see here, we have 6 layers of data categories. One is foundation layer, then there is a base layer, then there is a clinical layer, then there is a financial layer, next is specialization, and last is contextual. So you can see how efficiently the FHIR has divided the data across different layers, across different categories, so that if you need the clinical document, you need to go to the clinical resources and make the API call and get the data. So composition framework plays a major role in FHIR, and in this way, there's a clean separation of concern plus separation of the data. If you have a EHR platform where you are showing, where you are concerned about the healthcare premiums which the patient has done or not, so you can just call the financial resources and get the data and show to your web portal or EHR admins and take and with the few click of a button you can get your insurance done, right? So this way of organizing is helping all the patients across the globe in seamlessly communicating and sharing their data. now just talk about the benefits of FHIR. One is, as I mentioned, it's improving the patient satisfaction level, because patient does not have to worry about what they where their files are there, what medications they were taking 5 years back or 10 years back, because everything is digitally available. And it also improving the healthcare which the patient is receiving, because doctors can see the entire history of medications, prescriptions, all the diseases which the patient has gone through it. So in total, doctors can take more firm decision based on the data points which they have, right? Also, its fast access is available because it's on the internet. It's just with but few button clicks you are able to retrieve the data across the hospital. You don't have to go to one hospital, get the data, transform them, and again take the data back to your hospital B, right? So these all things have been taken care by the FHIR standardization. It also improving the collaboration and communication between the organization which are participating in the healthcare industry. Now they can create more innovative ideas, they can share the data among ourselves and provide better care for the person, for the end users, and eventually reducing the cost. So for example, if you have already taken some lab blood test and hospital A, right, you can directly send that over to the hospital B without even worrying about what will how it will be done, how the data will be retrieved to hospital B, when it will be retrieved to hospital B. So these are all the benefits of the FHIR. Now let's now talk about FHIR and architecture design. One thing I want to highlight in here is that FHIR is not equal to architecture design. Like, it is not imposing any architecture pattern into the application. It is just laying down some basic ground rules, how you structure your data and how you communicate your data. It is just laying down the standardization. You can have your application built with peer-to-peer or a central server, you can have it, or you can build asynchronous architecture microservices which are built in Java or Golang or Node.js, right? FHIR does not restrict on any of those things. What FHIR is restricting you on to the structuring of the data, how you are creating the RESTful endpoints, what will be the number of endpoints for each resources, how you get the data, how will you update the data. So those kind of standardization which FHIR is putting into picture. So the bottom line is FHIR is a set of tools which is defining the resources, extensively mechanism, and set of standard interfaces. If I need to lay down a very simple architecture, if somebody is implementing the FHIR, right, it will be like this. There will be RESTful endpoints. Any server who is implementing the FHIR standards are termed as FHIR services. Now you can have the RESTful endpoint which is either in JSON or XML, which goes to a FHIR parser, which then pass the data to your service layer like POCO or FOJO, and then we are finally storing them into a storage. So in here you can see, like, storage, it can be database, like SQL, NoSQL, or any other format, right? So it is not restricting you where to store, how to store, but only thing is what field should be there, what endpoint should be there. It is just restricting onto that. Let's now just see what are the FHIR implementation currently done. First is in July 2019, Indian government launched the National Digital Health Blueprint Program, whose goal was to achieve universal health coverage through Ayushman Bharat digital mission. So what government is doing is, government is creating a repository for our health records for all across the India, where there can be lab records or your x-rays or your patient information or organization who wants to part of the healthcare industry, right? So government is implementing the standardization across the India, and for doing that they have developed the ABDM as their mechanism. ABDM is a set of repositories where government is storing the individual person's data. ABDM is built on federated architecture. So if you can see in here that user A can belong to health locker 1 and user B can belong to health locker 2, and then they all are interconnected using an API gateway. Even your lab record, if you see, all having the standard way of storing the data, and these are connected to a repositories. Now repository internally call to each other using the gateways. So in total, ABDM is the implementation of FHIR protocols in India. So you can think of this as a how the government has implemented the unified identification Aadhaar card as digitally. Similarly, you can assume the ABDM is doing for us for the healthcare data. And that's all from my end for today.